Have you ever thought that the world was in such a state that it was in danger of God's wrath? What does it take for God to intervene in such a way? Join us today as we discuss this and much more. Have you ever heard a pastor or someone talk about God's wrath being poured out onto the world or a country or a city? Is there any biblical basis for this? What does it take for a place to receive direct and immediate judgment from God Himself? After speaking with Abraham, God sends two angels to Sodom. As we discussed previously, Sodom was known for all sorts of hedonism, sinful and deviant behavior. We discussed how Lot set up his tent toward the city, showing Lot's desire for wealth, prosperity, and a type of lifestyle that came with this city. However, since we had left off with Lot, he had moved from outside to inside this city. These two angels set out to Sodom on a mission to see for themselves whether Sodom was in a state of moral decay as rumored. Once arriving at the city gates, they're met by Lot, who begs them to come into his house and leave in the morning. But the angels resist and state that they will stay in the town square instead. Lot continues to insist these angelic beings come with him until they relent. Lot shows great hospitality by cooking a feast and providing them with beds. However, the men of the town notice the men going into Lot's house and surround his dwelling and demand that Lot release these guests to them so they may forcibly have their way with them. The writer tells us, Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, "I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly." Lot even went as far as offering his virgin daughters as a consolation to these men. But instead of listening to Lot's counsel, these men start berating him, accusing Lot, an outsider, of being judgmental to their ways. Once the townsmen were close to breaking down the door, the angels reach and bring Lot back inside, shutting the door on the wicked men outside. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out, groping for the door. Afterward, the angels advise Lot to gather any family he has and flee the city, for it will be destroyed. For we are about to destroy this place because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Lot then goes to his son-in-laws to be, men that were in the city, and pleads with them to go with him to escape the city. But they do not listen, thinking this is some sort of joke. In the morning, the angels come again to Lot and commanded him to leave with all of his family, but Lot hesitated. So the angels dragged Lot, his wife, and his two daughters out of the city. As they brought them out, one said, "Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape for the hills, lest you be swept away." Nonetheless, Lot resisted. Lot, becoming accustomed to the life of the city, asked to go to another city instead of the hills as commanded. The angels granted this request and sent him to the city Zor. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valleys and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. However, Lot's wife, longing for the city and lifestyle they were fleeing from, looked back instead of accepting the command of God delivered by these angelic men and was turned into a pillar of salt. Lot continues on, living on the outskirts of Zoar with his daughters. His daughters, being in despair of the loss of their potential marriages, take advantage of their father over the course of a couple drunken nights in a successful effort to bear children. This isn't the first or only time God brings direct judgment onto a people, but it's the first in a localized manner and with such great detail. In fact, as we continue in our studies, we will see a very similar story happen to a city of God's own chosen people. Let me be extremely clear. I believe the Bible teaches that both homosexuality and incest are both sins. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations. I am the Lord. Do not dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. Do not have relations with her. Do not have sexual relations with your father's wife. That would dishonor your father. Do not have sexual relations with your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same house or elsewhere. Do not have sexual relations with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. That would dishonor you. Do not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife, born to your father. She is your sister. Do not have sexual relations with your father's sister. She is your father's close relative. Do not have sexual relations with your mother's sister, because she is your mother's close relative. Do not dishonor your father's brother by approaching his wife to have sexual relations. She is your aunt. Do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. Do not have relations with her. Do not have sexual relations with your brother's wife. That would dishonor your brother. However, there's some nuance that's often overlooked when this story is taught from a pulpit. The people of Sodom are often called wicked, and homosexuality was obviously not their only sin, but one of many. So, to say that God will bring direct wrath because of the homosexual behavior of a society, I think misses the mark. However, if we look at the gross and blatant sinful desires of today, we do not seem to be that far off from where Sodom was as far as a moral perspective goes. Now, that's not to say that any natural disaster like Hurricane Katrina was the result of God's direct judgment. Jesus put it this way: He causes His sun to shine on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and unrighteous. And as He passed by, He saw a man blind from birth, and His disciples asked Him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the work of God might be displayed in him." In other words, sometimes bad things just happen, not because of anything that we have done, but because we live in a fallen world, fallen in nature because we have made it so. And sometimes God allows bad things to happen so He can allow Himself to be known to both you and others. However, in the case of Lot and his family, it seems that they were saved by their willingness and attempt to leave behind a lifestyle of sinful desires, even if they fall back into sin shortly after, with the example of Lot's daughters. Though incest was not labeled as a sin at this point and would have been a necessary part of populating the earth. Now, there would be those who would point out that homosexuality is called out as an abomination to God and would probably lump incest in with that as well. And while I completely agree with the premise, I would challenge them to tell me which sin is not an abomination to God. An abomination is defined as something that causes disgust or hatred. God finds all sins disgusting and hates all of it. This is the entire reason Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden and why we live in a fallen world today. If you struggle with these sins or any sin, I would encourage you to attempt to change your ways and submit your desires to God and allow Him to clean you up. Jesus says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Now, this does not mean that you must be self-loathing or that you must disown your family in order to follow Jesus or be a Christian, but that you should put God above all, even your family, and yes, even your own desires. In the same way Lot relented, we must relent. May I encourage you to relent to God's will. There is truly no greater way to live than under His will. Please continue to follow along with me as we learn more about this merciful and loving God that wants the best for you and I. May God keep you and bless you. Really quick, before you go, let me explain why I felt led to start this channel. When talking to Pilate, Jesus said, "I have come into the world to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate responds by asking, "What is the truth?" It's evident that a lot of people are still asking this question almost 2,000 years later. And while we live in an amazing time with the wealth of the world's knowledge available in the palm of our hands, there's often too much information, leaving people unable to process what's true and what's not true. Paul describes such times in this way when he writes his second letter to his disciple Timothy. Always learning and never able to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. There are several who expound on what truth is, but often they are misguided, or they are malice in their intent, or they're being intellectually dishonest. My hope is that I am able to provide evidence for why the scriptural narrative is true, a contextual and practical explanation of the principles found in its writings, and a defense for other believers. As Peter explains, you should always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. If you find value in this channel as I do, there are a few ways you can help, both by gifting and without spending any money. First, react and interact with these videos wherever you're watching from. This greatly helps the channel be seen by others and new people. Next, please share this content with others you feel may benefit from the information found here. Also, please subscribe to this channel on all social media. And finally, if you feel led to, and if you have the means to, please consider giving to this channel through the outlets previously mentioned, or the channel's Patreon. All these links are going to be in the video description. Thank you for watching, and may God keep you and bless you.